All right, as I told you before, when we had various quotes and things, that Mr. Baldwin will be here, and simply what we'll do is have a straight question and answer period, Q&A, and I'll try to repeat the question as much as possible so that in case any people can't hear it, and we'll just get to it. So I'll just try to moderate and point out and get some people, whoever wants to ask a question. Okay, let's get to it. Do you want to say? Okay. All right, somebody down front here. Let's hear what you have to say. Let's get another mic. Hold on. I already gave them a lot about your background, all this stuff, so we can cut all the window dressing out. All right, question. Go ahead. First question. So the question comes as how is it to be American in a foreign country? That's essentially what it is.
Well, I think you're referring to something I said a long time ago when I said that I became an American for the first time when I stepped off the boat in France when I was 24, yeah. Well, when I got to France, I discovered that I wasn't anything else. I wasn't French, I wasn't African. I'd been born, in fact, in Harlem, and whether I liked it or not, I was an American. And being an American abroad, being a black American abroad in those years, it's not quite the same now, was very bewildering. Very bewildering because the Europeans assumed a relationship to my country, which in fact I didn't have. You know, Europe knows very little about America until today. And people know almost nothing at all about the black American, which is simply a source of confusion in the European mind. You know, Americans are by definition white. A black American is a contradiction in terms, you know. And to make them understand this, and to make yourself understand it, is part of what I was talking about.
We'll just take one follow-up, sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take another question. Next question. Okay, right back here. Okay, the question is he familiar with the rising suicide rate among the youngsters here in this country, the blacks in particular, and what are his views on that? I'm repeating the questions for the benefit of our tape here.
I'm aware of that, of the rising suicide rate. What my views are on it, well, it isn't, I'm not sure my views are very relevant. But it isn't very hard to see why there would be a rising suicide rate among young black people. The question is how to arrest it. And how to arrest it is by creating some kind of, creating a situation in which there is some hope. What you're asking me is, in effect, you know, you're asking me what are my views on our situation and the latest manifestation of our trouble. We've always had to deal with this trouble, you know. I can't answer, you know, at this moment how to do this, but since we see it happening around us, we know something has to be done. The trouble is we cannot expect any help from most of our co-citizens or any help from the government unless we can blackmail the government. You see what I mean? It's a matter of jobs. You know, which is a matter of whether or not you have a future. And if a person thinks he has no future, he very often cuts his throat. The same thing. It's the same thing behind the phenomenon of drugs. People become junkies because they are hopeless. And it is not, this afternoon that we can arrive at a solution to that. But I think it's something that everyone has to work with. Because I got younger brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews too. And I'm scared to death about it. And I don't quite know what to do. That's the only honest answer I can give you.
Okay, there's a hand over here. Want to know why this forum was so poorly publicized? Mr. Baldwin will yield that to me. Frankly, I did not have the responsibility for publicizing, but I don't think it was so very so poorly publicized. At least there was a very big poster on my window in the office down there on San Pablo Avenue, at least. And there were a few other things. A lot of people, I don't think it was so poorly. To answer your question, I don't think it was so poorly publicized. Next question, over here.
How can we get there from here?
How can we get to... Okay, how can we build a non-racist society in this country?
This is going to be a rough afternoon.
Amen.
Well, I'll make an attempt. The racist society we're speaking of, is tied to the economic system. There's simply no way around that, And racism is a product, a direct product, a willed product, and a desired product of that economic system. Now, we obviously are not going to be able to dismantle the economic system this afternoon, but I think it's just as well to look at it as clearly as possible, because racism in this society has its own rewards. Mm-hmm. A white person in this society who really tries to visit those in prison, who really does not believe in all the bullshit we've been taught all these years, is at once, in fact, treated just like a nigger. He has become déclassé. He is worse than a nigger in a way because he should know better. Now, the only thing we can do about that right now is to live the lives we think we should and try and aim it and work toward the world we think we want to have. And take whatever, pay whatever you have to pay behind it. There's nothing else there's no formula, and we won't get there, we won't get there from here tomorrow.
Oh, okay, let's take a question from this side of the room. Is there anyone? Okay, fine, right here. Okay, let me repeat the question. He said that, how do you feel about Pan-Africanism for blacks instead of trying to look at the society as becoming a non-racist society?
Well, frankly, no, I don't think there's a contradiction in that, at all. I think that what you have to do, or what we have to do, and what she's talking about, come out finally to be the same thing. At some level, at some point, we are fated to meet, Because the Pan-African society you're talking about, I agree with that. With this reservation, that we can go to Africa, and we can do anything we want to do, really. But we cannot go back to Africa. And I point that out because if you think you're going back to Africa, then you are likely to be disappointed. You see what I mean?
Okay.
Well, because you in fact were not born in Africa, You in fact are not a part of that society. This is only a matter. I'm only pointing this out as a matter of fact. It's not an objection. But so that if you come to Africa from Detroit, let us say,
Well, very good. Right on.
But if you know that, then you are equipped to deal with what you'll find. That's what I'm saying. No.
If I may interject something, I should say that when I was in Africa, I was very surprised to find out that I was referred to as white man.
Yes, it's full of surprises.
Damn, I better get a paint job.
But it's very exciting, too. I mean, I'm with you.
Okay, let's see another question way in back. Yes? Question is, what young American writers are helping to carry on your own point of view, and how are you trying to shape them now?
Well,
or how's trying to shape something?
That's it. Yes.
Well, yeah. How are your own ideas changing young Americans?
That's a slightly difficult question. First of all, it's hard for me to name younger writers, even a little bit dangerous, because then you obviously leave somebody out. So I'll only say that about half a dozen, younger people, very young people, who mean a great deal to me, and I think who will mean in the future a great deal to this country and to the world. And as it's very difficult for me to tell you precisely how they affect me, except that I depend on them. And I learn a great deal from them. I learn something about the world in which they live, which is also the world in which I live, but I'm much older. So the world of a man of 25 is not exactly closed to me, but it's not the world in which I operate. I'm not 25. But I know a great many people who are 25. And I've got an enormous family who of all ages, which prevents me from they don't allow me to become stagnant. So all I can tell you is I'm trying to keep abreast. And I'm very grateful to the people who are my comrades, who are younger than I.
Okay, Brian, right here.
I've always viewed black dialect as a shield, and a very effective shield against prejudice. However, so I would like to do that. But however, a first grader or a second grader is in public school, the first thing that he's taught is that he's not speaking the right kind of English. In other words, the teacher then attempts to teach the child standard English, and the child's already been given this shield, this defense, this black dialect against prejudice. He doesn't want to let it go. From what I can observe in the school system, it seems to be a problem.
So your question is black died the shield?
I'd just like to hear his views on
All right.
dialect. Is it a shield? Is it not a shield? How do you see it at the cost of teaching about child behavior?
Okay, the question is black dye the shield or is it not a shield, and how does Mr. Baldwin view it with respect to reading, sort of thing?
Well, the word dialect that threw me a little bit because I didn't quite know what you meant. You're talking about Negro. You're talking about black speech, Negro speech.
Good.
Oh yes, I know. I understand what you mean now.
Bad. Yeah, damn, man. Let's get on with it.
No, I know what you mean now, and it's it's a technique. It's a technique of survival, and it comes out of the fact that comes out of the truth, which is that at one point in our history, I had to warn him about something while you were listening, and he had to understand it, and you not understand it. That's. No, but that's true. That's exactly the root of black language. Well, you see. I know. Then you got a collision. But I tell you what, I think, in my view, what I've seen, and I've worked a little bit in the public schools, and I got family in the public schools. It's more subtle than that. It is indeed a collision, but beneath the apparent problem, which is real, there is also almost always, on the part of the teacher, a contempt for the child's experience. And the child reacts to that, more than to the technical question of reading, or learning, standard English. I might add, by the way, that this is the most illiterate country in the world, and very few people are equipped to teach anybody anything. But if you see, in my experience, if the teacher can get through to the child, he or she can teach that child without menacing that child's way of life, without menacing that child's way of speaking. Because every black man in this country speaks two languages, Well, I beg your pardon? and has to, because we're surrounded by a hostile population. So the question is not that the kid will be divested of his tools by the teacher, but that the teacher can't teach him because she doesn't respect him. If she respects him, then the kid will respond to that respect, and then he can learn. But
The teacher was to make very clear to the child that I'm teaching you another dialect, I'm teaching you the standard, teaching you Ghana, and so on from there.
yeah, but it depends on the rapport the teacher establishes with the child,
Okay, I might add something to that. If you're really interested in pursuing that particular type of thing, there's a very excellent course in the Department of Afro-American Studies called Afro-American Linguistics. It's number 138. It's right here on this campus. I know it because I teach it, okay? This case. Yeah. I see no need for me to rephrase the question.
I'm not entirely sure I've understood. The first part of the question is about the dominance of the Anglo-Saxon language, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying Afro-Saxon and dominant of what extent.
English all over the
And
world.
I'm saying that because the continent of Africa, the Caribbean, and the Black Americans, and the dark who speaks the English language. I'm saying it because it's Afro-Saxon language.
All right.
To what extent is it dominant of what?
Afro-Saxon.
Afro-Saxon language. I see what you're saying. Well, I don't quite know. I'm not absolutely sure I've entirely understood the implications of your question, first of all, to be honest. And I don't know, you asked me to what extent, you say the Afro-Saxon language. Is that your phrase?
Not Anglo-Saxon,
Not
Afro-Saxon.
Anglo-Saxon, Afro-Saxon. All right. To what extent does this language dominate the world, is your question, the first part of your question. And that is, well, I don't quite know how to answer it because I don't quite know what the question means. Obviously, what you call the Afro-Saxon language dominates a great part of the world, The implications of this domination are what I suppose your question is addressing itself to, and that I frankly cannot answer this afternoon because it's an enormous question. And the other that concerns my speech, you say I was nationalistic.
Nationalistic, yeah.
Well, I didn't intend to be nationalistic. I think I understand why you think that, and I suppose you're right, really. But I was addressing an American audience in an American context, and concerning things which I consider to be very urgent, happening at this moment in this country. But I was not, I did not mean to be oblivious or to seem to be oblivious to the world outside this country. You understand what I'm trying to say? And
Middle part of it about the Afro-Americans, the Africans, and the
yes,
the myth with respect to
the myth you say that the Afro-Americans and Africans don't get together. Yeah, I don't. When I was talking to my friend over yonder before about the difference between going to Africa and going back to Africa, I was not implying a division. I was just insisting on a kind of clarity. And when I myself was in Africa, I didn't feel at all. How can I put it? I didn't feel strange at all. I was very happy in Africa. I learned a great deal. I want to go back. In fact, I went to Africa prepared to be treated, as you put it, like a white man. And I was treated very differently. People told me what tribe I came from, or guessed what tribe I came from.
Yeah.
It really was as though, in contradiction to what I said before, but it really was as though for me, as though I'd come home. Mm-hmm. And when I say I learned something, I can't put in words what it was I learned because it wasn't anything I could write down. It was something that happened inside me, out of the interaction. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point he's making. Even though I told you that people referred to me as white men over there, it was it was because of my speech, the way I had my clothes, etc., and the way I walked, that sort of thing. But at the same time, I had a very close affinity with many of the Africans. Once you get to understand the culture, know the people there, it was really a very big, beautiful thing, especially for any black person that goes to Africa. Somebody who had a hand was over here. Okay, way in the back. Okay, there's with respect to rape, black-on-black crime, and with respect to Africa, are these conditions or products of the society? Is that what you're saying? Okay. By the way, we're just joined by Dr. Peters, who's been very, very instrumental in arranging the complete schedule of Mr. Baldwin while he's been here. And so I just want to welcome him to the up front here. Okay, go ahead.
First part of your question, the black-on-black crimes and rape, etc. I don't know how to put this. It seems to me very obvious that, first of all, I'm afraid it's going to get worse before it gets better. And it is obviously the product of this society. This society is not only undergoing a crisis, but is coming apart at the seams. And when the social fabric begins to give, chaos is one of the results. And nobody in the society escapes that. It's tragic, but this society this is a very dishonest society. And it cannot produce a certain kind of monster. And it will for a while. This is where you and I, all of us, come in. We have to try to deal with that, but there's no point deluding ourselves about it. As for third world countries, it is my impression that they have other things to do and have a more coherent need for each other. It is our need for each other precisely which is menaced here and makes everyone distrust everybody else here and makes it so difficult for anything to be done or for anyone to love each other. That's why you get rape, black-on-black crimes, and etc., all of that. No one in this society trusts anybody else. The world that is coming, that we see beginning to come in what we call the third world countries, it's too soon for me to make any guesses about it. But what I have seen of it, demands of the people in it a mutual respect, and since they have a common goal, which is something they can work toward, which is their necessity really. They have no choice but to work toward their liberation. the society functions on another level, and I would hazard, well, in my experience, I know that the crimes you speak of are more and are very uncommon.
Okay, question over here. Okay, lady.
I'm not sure.
No, I'm not sure either. You're saying that does the American Negro have is there a university or a particular place where he has a permanent place in it? God damn, I still didn't get it. Did you?
I didn't get it either.
Would you just mind just say it in 2 or 3 words? A permanent place or of achievement with respect to they can. Okay, well, let's look at it in permanency and not in achievement.
Well, are you referring?
Yeah. Okay. Just essentially, as much as I can see from it, is there particular places or universities, or is there a particular thing like as an American citizen you can vote, or how do you look at it yourself as somebody of importance here in the United States?
I don't know. No, I'm very sorry, but I didn't
completely get it myself.
I didn't understand the question, so the best thing you do is say I didn't understand the question.
Okay, we don't understand. Next question. I'll get to you personally. Okay, the question was, you'd like to have a statement from Mr. Baldwin with respect to homosexuality that there... Oh, among blacks. Homosexuality among blacks.
I don't. Okay, but what is this to do with the black scholar? What is this to do with Egypt?
With Egypt?
No, I'm not trying to be funny. You know. Mm-hmm. 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 And that everything comes from black. Mm-hmm. 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 All right.
Because one of the points of the lecture is white is not black, black differences, all shades of black.
I see.
But the scholars were hostile to homosexuality.
Well, well, I got very little to say about that because homosexuality among blacks isn't different from homosexuality among other people. There is a kind of, and when I asked you about Egypt, this is what I wanted to find out. There is a kind of, there is a very definite hostility against homosexuality among certain black people. There's a certain image of masculinity, which the idea of homosexuality seems to attack. I think that's nonsense myself. You know, people are going to have always been as various as people are, and no one makes himself. You know, and no one can foresee who he or she is going to fall in love with. And ain't nobody's business but the person's.
That's right.
You know.
Amen. Amen. Lady over here. Okay, what are the important things that a black person, a black parent in particular, should have in responding to their children? Okay.
Well, it's
Save the children here.
Well, but it's such an individual question. First of all, you're dealing with a child. You're dealing with a miracle, and you're responsible for it. You know, and first of all, you have to give that child yourself. You know, and the truth. And you have to trust the child. It's a very delicate. It's not true to say I haven't raised any children. I've been around children all my life. You know, from the time from the cradle until the time they went to school. And so I know, you know, what. It's the most delicate and strenuous endeavor in the world. It's much harder than writing a book. You know, but it's not an endeavor where anyone can advise you, in a sense, because every child is different. You know. And it's changing all of the time, you know, from one second to the next. The child is always discovering something, you know, and every discovery changes him. And some of the discoveries are dangerous, some of the discoveries are beautiful, you know. All of the discoveries, you know, from the point of view of the parent, are a little frightening. But you have to trust it. You have to trust the child, and you have to trust yourself with the child. And you cannot be too rigid about it, because the child is going to grow up into a world which you cannot imagine. All you can do is prepare him for the world in which he will live. But you will not be able to dictate the terms of that world. Because at a moment in his life, he's going to learn more from his peers than he can learn from you. If you see what I mean. So everything depends on what you do with him the first 7 years. Does that make sense to you? But I can't be more specific than that. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Well, we face this problem for generations. I would add, though, that unlike when I was a child, prepare the child for life in America was the only question, you know, because no other part of the world existed. And unlike, you know, when I was a child, there was no Africa even to be discussed. And when I was a child, all I knew was that I was I come from slaves. And that was it. There'd never been any clockmakers or any poets or any writers or any maybe a couple of boxes, but nothing else produced by black people. Now that's a terrible way to grow up. Your child does not have that handicap, and it isn't only life in America you got to prepare him for, but you know, by the time he's 20, this century ends, and America will be much less important. It will no longer be the center of the world when this century comes to an end. You've got to prepare the child for a world that is coming much, much larger than the world in which he was born. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I want to know why did he have to leave America, and what did he discover with his in France as respect to the tone of America?
I left America in 1948, and it's not exactly true to say I left in order to write. I left in order to stay alive. I knew that my life on the New York streets, in the hands of the cops and all the other hazards, was soon come to an end. You know, somebody would call me nigger once too often. Something, you know, it was inevitable. Or I'd end up in jail. So I split. And largely because I'm the oldest of 9 children, and I felt responsible for them. And all I could do was write, and I could no longer do it in New York. So I went to Paris, where I did finish my first book. And in Paris, I did learn, as I said before, in a kind of silence, because I didn't speak any French. I knew very few people. I lived in a kind of silence in which I was able to hear, for the first time, really, where I really came from, and what what I really sounded like, what my father really sounded like. I got it from the music, if you see what I mean. The cadence of black speech, and how I myself must have sounded when I was 4 or 5 years old. I was able to make a certain journey back into myself and into my past, and make a certain kind of reconciliation with myself and my past. And then I was able to grow up. If that answers you. Mm-hmm. I would have been killed.
The question was, what do you think would have happened if you had you not left?
Well, I once asked my brother that, and he answered me very, very succinctly. He said, "You'd be dead." You know, and it's true. If I had not left, I would be dead. I'm not being romantic about that.
You'd recall some of the quotes that I read earlier when one of his agents told him to burn the book.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so this is some idea. Okay, right over here, fine.
I mean that, though.
Okay. Well, just please try to confine as much as possible. Go ahead. Good one. Demand for interest. Four. Last one, please. Okay. Okay, essentially what you're looking at is literature, how do people look at literature, black literature in Africa, then it has to do with black labels, such as Afro-American, Black, Afro-Am, that sort of stuff. Thirdly, has to do with with Du Bois, yeah, with Du Bois, and lastly, what was the last one? Vice on becoming black. Now you have the choice of four there to respond to. Which one would you like to do? Okay, chose to die in Ghana. So you want to let him respond to one of those. Which one would you like to?
Well, it's a package, isn't it?
A package. It is a package. It's nice package.
It's a nice package, though. But I don't know how to begin it. Let me get into the end.
The end. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. I agree. I agree with Du Bois. Almost entirely. He was a very great, very great scholar, a very great man. It depends. I must add to that in the time in which we live, everything depends on how you interpret what you mean by the word revolution. Because we cannot have an armed insurrection in this country at this moment. I'm just trying to be realistic. They got the guns, so we had to do it another way. Yeah. But that's all right because it will be done. As for the, I think you asked me about the reception of black American writers abroad, right, or specifically in Africa.
Europe, wasn't it? You said black literature in Europe. Is that what you were? Abroad in general. Okay.
Well, black literature abroad, is not very well known. Not very well known. It's beginning to be better known. I'm thinking now of English African writers and French African writers, and some from the Caribbean, and some Americans, of course. It's only beginning to be known because it's just as Africa is only beginning to be known. Just as the black experience is only beginning now to be known. If you see what I mean. And you had one other question about what advice. Oh, yes, about labels. Well, I must admit, the question of what black people in America should be called is not is not very urgent in my mind. At the moment, we seem to be more or less reconciled to being Afro-Americans, which is perfectly all right with me. It seems to more or less suggest the truth about our situation and our identity, and even something about our potential. And as for the advice I might be able to give to a young literary
Genius.
to a young literary genius, let me tell you one thing. Young literary geniuses don't take anybody's advice.
Okay, let's go way over here. Question. You. Yeah.
After living in Chicago, but in Chicago for 8 years, I came out here and really was surprised to find a black woman.
A black what?
A black what? Well, stand a black what?
I came to Chicago after living here for 8 years around the University of Chicago in a campus town, and I came out to Berkeley quite surprised, kind of culture shock that the black enrollment on the university was somewhere between 1% and 2%. This being one of the largest public universities in the country. And I'd like you to just comment on public education in America, maybe in the cities, large cities of this country, and what's happening there.
Would you should like to, Mr. Baldwin, to comment on public education in America, especially with respect to blacks? Especially with respect to blacks. And especially why on this university the black enrollment very low. I don't know if he can really respond to that or not, but just go ahead.
I'll do my best. I'll begin with the public school situation, which I know more about. And it's a very difficult question to answer too. It's a difficult answer because first of all, you can't begin to answer without feeling terribly futile. And look, the truth is, it's very hard to talk about education in this country without talking about the whole society in which it mainly fails to occur. You can hardly talk about schools, without talking about cities. And the cities are in the hands of financiers. The cities in the hands of pirates, thugs. And our children, therefore, are victims of this, are victims of the principles according to which the country is run. The country is not run according to either the will of its citizens, I hope, or the good of its citizens, I know that, but for profit, for money, to make money. And education is a billion-dollar industry. And the least important part of that industry is the child. I think this is a criminal, but this is the way it works. Now, the public education in the city in which I grew up, is enough to break the heart, enough to make you want to kill. And when we have tried, and we're trying again, and we've tried over and over and over again, to educate our children ourselves, to be responsible for the teaching, the curriculum, for the books. We did that for 3 years in New York some years ago, and the experiment succeeded for 3 years. And because it succeeded, it was crashed, it was smashed by the Board of Education, the Teachers Union, and Albany. So that is what you're up against. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. That's what one's up against. As for enrollment at this college, let's face it, black people in this country have a terrible time just getting through 24 hours a day. It's absolutely true, And education, it's hard to talk about education in a country in which literacy is adored. It's hard to talk about education in a country where people take seriously such a creature as John Wayne and Ronald Reagan. It is. I really am not trying to be funny. It's true, And for a black person to get an education in this country, he's got to have a lot of guts, first of all, and to endure. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but this institution is like many other institutions, and which means it's a racist institution.
Amen.
There's no way around that. All the American institutions are racist. And to get an education under those circumstances is a tremendous act of the will. And also you risk schizophrenia. But I'm not saying this because I think black people should not be educated, but I am saying that black people very largely educate themselves. What you have to do is pick up the tools and with your own intention. You know, that's the trick.
Okay, I'll take a question. Before that, I'd like to mention one thing is that it's a very good thing that you're bringing up this question about low enrollment of black students. In fact, I think the fact that Mr. Baldwin's been here for a long time here at the university, roughly the past 4 or 5 years, we've been trying to get together a Black Scholars Conference, and I think that James Baldwin's appearance here is as a Regents lectureship that is going to help to be more or less the catalyst for bringing that sort of thing about. You know, many of us can get together and think, and look, it's not just for the University of California, it's for many of the other institutions around here, but of course the University of California is the biggie, and we should set the pace on a lot of things. And so I hope that something like this will be forthcoming if we do get some sort of a conference that will be materialized. Okay, a question right over here. Gentlemen, it's been antsy for a while.
No, I don't. No, I've not read it and I've not seen it.
Is that your question?
No, I'm not.
You want to know if he was familiar with the play For Colored Girls Only by Mr. Saki. He said he was not. Okay. Okay, question. Thank you. Come on, bring it on. 2 questions, okay.
The what factors?
The what and why.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I see no need to repeat the question.
The what and why factors. Well, the what and why factor is always a little difficult to, to isolate. And well, how can I put it? I began to write around the time I started to read, and I was fascinated by people and all that. I used to do, Christmas pageants for the church, and I wrote the school song, which my poor brothers had to sing for years. But that I never thought of that as it didn't occur to me I was going to be a writer. I began to be a writer in my own mind, really, and this has a lot to do with my father. Largely because of my father, I entered the pulpit when I was 14. Largely because of my father, but not only because of my father. And I was in the pulpit for 3 years. Now, a great many things happened to me in that 3 years in the pulpit. And one of them was being exposed in a way I never had been before. And of course, I was an adolescent. It's also involved with puberty. Seeing for the first time, the brothers and the sisters of the church, and really seeing the lives they led, and the role, the church played in their lives, and the role that I, as a young minister, played in their lives too. And it was kind of overwhelming, to be exposed to so much misery, so much love, so much faith, so much terror, so much pain, day in and day out, week in and week out, for those 3 years. And eventually, my father and I thought about it, but I eventually felt that I had no right to stay in the pulpit. That I was doing something wrong. That I couldn't bring them what they needed. And I no longer believed as I had believed when I was 14. And so I left. But I know that if it had not been for that, I might not have become a writer. And the maturation process you talk about as concerns my father. My father died when I was 19. And he died, that is, before we could become reconciled. And that pain is the root of Go Tell It on the Mountain, which it took me 10 years to write. But in that 10 years, insofar as anyone ever grows up, you know. In that 10 years, from 17 to 27, by the time I finished novel when I was 27, and then I began to grow up. Because I knew who my father was, and, you know.
Very nice. Right here. Go ahead. Yes, you. Yes, stand up, please. Okay, question was the term nigger. Why does he use his definition of the term, and why does he use it so often?
Well, it's a term. I know that it's a very controversial term, in fact, but I use it in many ways. You know, it's a word. It's if you'll excuse the expression, the word is a little like motherfucker. You know. Which
did you say motherfucker or motherfucker? Anyway, go ahead.
It's a word which can, depending on who is saying it and to whom, you know, can mean almost anything. It can cause a fight. It can lead to a wedding. You know.
Especially if she says, "You're my nigga."
Does that answer your question? My definition? Well, obviously the word, you know, comes. It's what does the word come from? The root is a Spanish word for black. You know, but the way what niggas have done with the word, or what we have done with the word, has very little to do with that. If you see what I mean. The gut feeling? Well, look, so obviously the world is full of people who better not call me nigger. You know, but my baby brother, you know, well, my baby brother's the only man in the world I'm scared of because he's bigger than I am now, and he remembers when he was smaller. You know? And if David's mad at me, he called me nigger one way. And when he's not mad at me, it's something else, you know. And it's one of, I'm not sure I can define it, but it's one of the, it's part of a system of telegraph signals, you know. It's, beg pardon? Well, I always thought it was, you know, it comes from the word Negro, which is the Spanish word for black, and then we, you know.
Okay.
But you might be right.
Anyway,
Does that answer you at all?
I think it's a good point. One thing that, especially he mentioned about it being a filler, this is a lot. You'll find a lot of it in the black culture, especially with this whole thing of black English, black speech, where people will use the word nigger and other words as fillers, not necessarily directed at a particular individual thing, but as a kind of a filler. I think it's very good. And the young lady down here said it came from Africa. It's a very good possibility.
Yeah, it's a good possibility too.
There's a word in some African languages, because it's ninga, which whenever it came over here and converged with English, there's a good possibility of it being nigger. Okay, right here.
Some of us came to hear your political views because we already understand your literary achievements. And on Thursday night, you were on the Public Television Network, and you were asked a question by one of the current local news correspondents in terms of as things got better, in terms of how you saw it as a black person. You responded that you were 50 years old and you're still waiting. And what happened to that person who is 12 or 22? How long must they wait? And I asked you the same question,
Okay, can you hear some more of the political view? I think it's very good. I'll just let Mr. Baldwin go ahead as to whatever he wants to do on that.
Well, first of all, let me say, that I don't consider myself a leader. I don't consider myself to be a spokesman. I don't consider, well, how can I put this? My political views, yes, I have very strong political views. I don't know that, let me try to be clear about this. What I'm trying to say is I don't have a social or a political blueprint. I'm not equipped to lead a revolution. I'm equipped perhaps to make you think, or to, But the reason that, what? Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, let's try to, okay, we'll take you, I beg your pardon? Well, I see. So we have a big hodgepodge of a lot of things.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, you asked me an enormous question, but first I'll be general and we'll try to be precise. For example, I concluded a long time ago, as I said before, we can't really talk about anything until we talk about the economic system. And I concluded a long time ago that this economic system, for many, 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 many reasons, is doomed. And frankly, it can't end a moment too soon. It is, it's caused fantastic grief and waste and does until today. And all of the things that the lady over there was talking about, like affirmative action or equal opportunity and all of those things, are menaced and by the stranglehold of this system. What I'm trying to say is whatever we are talking about, we have to bear in mind that whether that is what we're up against, that is what has to be, in one way or another, defeated, outwitted, overthrown finally, or it will fall of its own weight. But we are always in that shadow, and our intentions, which are really essentially, after all, to save our children, is not the intention of this republic. It was never intended, after all, let us tell the truth about it, it was never intended that we should be free here, and it was never intended that we should be able to talk to each other as we are doing now. It was not a part of the will of the American Republic. Now, one's politics has to be based, has to come from that. And the reason it's difficult for me sometimes to discuss my political views is because it demands a vast amount of improvisation from day to day. For example, how in the world, our president is against political prisoners, and he said that to the whole world, right? And he's for human rights. But we have thousands of political prisoners sitting in jail in this country right now. For example, Ben Chavitz in Charlotte, North Carolina, and all of our effort until this hour has failed to get him released. You know what I mean? The question is then, how do we do that? And furthermore, behind Ben Chavitz, there are thousands of boys sitting in the tombs right now who have absolutely no right to be there, no reason to be there. How do we get them out? And we know very well that we can march and petition the mayor, the president, and we have done it for years and years and years. And it's not until there is some advantage they can gain from responding, it's only then that they respond. Now I will add this. There's a responsibility, since we have we can expect such little help from most of our co-citizens, and none at all from the power structure, then we have to be, we're in an unprecedented situation which demands unprecedented means. So there being no historical precedent for our situation, Marx nor Lenin can help us here. European history does not help us here. History doesn't give us any example of the people, the black people of this country, and the situation that we are in, and where we came from, and how we have endured. So we have to forge a new politics with a vast amount of cunning, and I might add, a vast amount of silence.
Amen. Okay, the question is, how would Mr. Baldwin, would he respond to, I think it's Michelle Wallace, with the work that she has done at the Super Ego or something like that?
It's Black Macho and the Myth of the Black Superwoman.
Sort of thing.
Well, I've not read the book. Personal situation. Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, let's try to. Okay, we'll take you. I beg your pardon. Well, I see. So we have a big hodgepodge of a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, you asked me an enormous question, but let's first I'll be general and we'll try to be precise. For example, I concluded a long time ago. As I said before, we can't really talk about anything until we talk about the economic system. And I concluded a long time ago that this economic system, for many reasons, is doomed. And frankly, it can't end a moment too soon. It's caused fantastic grief and waste and does until today. And all of the things that the lady over there was talking about, like affirmative action or equal opportunity and all of those things, are menaced and by the stranglehold of this system. What I'm trying to say is whatever we are talking about, we have to bear in mind that whether that is what we're up against, that is what has to be in one way or another defeated, outwitted, overthrown finally, or it will fall of its own weight. But we are always in that shadow, and our intentions, which are really essentially, after all, to save our children, is not the intention of this republic. It was never intended, after all, let us tell the truth about it, it was never intended that we should be free here, and it was never intended that we should be able to talk to each other as we are doing now. It was not a part of the will of the American Republic. Now, one's politics has to be based, has to come from that. And the reason it's difficult for me sometimes to discuss my political views is because it demands a vast amount of improvisation from day to day. For example, How in the world, our president is against political prisoners, and he said that to the whole world, right? And he's for human rights. But we have thousands of political prisoners sitting in jail in this country right now. For example, Ben Chavitz in Charlotte, North Carolina, and all of our effort until this hour has failed to get him released. You know what I mean? The question is then, how do we do that? And furthermore, behind Ben Chavitz, there are thousands of boys sitting in the tombs right now who have absolutely no right to be there, no reason to be there. How do we get them out? And we know very well that we can march and petition the mayor, the president, and we have done it for years and years and years. And it's not until there is some advantage they can gain from responding, it's only then that they respond. Now I will add this. There's a responsibility, since we have we can expect such little help from most of our co-citizens, and none at all from the power structure. Then we have to be, we're in an unprecedented situation which demands unprecedented means. So there being no historical precedent for our situation, Marx nor Lenin can help us here. European history does not help us here. History doesn't give us any example of the black people of this country, and the situation that we are in, and where we came from, and how we have endured. So we have to forge a new politics with a vast amount of cunning, and I might add, a vast amount of silence.
Amen. Next. Okay, the question is, how would Mr. Baldwin, would he respond to, I think it's Michelle Wallace, with the work that she's done into Super Ego or something like that?
It's Black Macho and the Myth of the Black Superwoman.
Sort of thing.
Well, I've not read the book, more or less deliberately. And I hear your question, and it's a little distressing. I don't want to discuss the book. I haven't read it. I'll read it one of these days. But frankly, what I really feel about him? No, I think black men have survived so much, I wouldn't be worried about this book.
Very, very, very good. Let's take somebody way back there. Yes, you. Fine, with your hand up. It has to do with television media. Okay, I think it was well stated. I'm not going to repeat it. Go ahead.
That's a difficult question, because television is designed to sell things. That's
that socialism is not a viable alternative to black. Is that what you mean?
No, that's not what I mean at all. I said Marx and Lenin because I should have said the European model. That does not help us here. We are in another situation altogether. And in fact, I envision a socialist state. I can't imagine what other kind of state we could hope to bring about. The only trouble there is, as I say, it's not really a trouble. The difficulty is there is no model in the world that I can point to and say that's the state I want. The socialist state that I envision is something which we'll have to create out of our materials here. That is to say, out of the American necessities, to respond to American necessities, and it necessarily is something which we'll have to make up as we go along, because there isn't any precedent for it. But I think the socialist state is the only hope of the world, because obviously this state, costs too much in human life. It's simply too expensive. The world cannot afford it, which means that it's doomed.
Okay, right here, Joe.
My question is writing in public. A few years back, you wrote something about Richard Wright being the father of all black writers who had to be destroyed before.
Oh God, I never said that.
Before another black writer could get to participate. And then Johnny Williams took it somewhere else. The man who thought I am about to write a competitive print. But my question is, do you really mean that? Said it. And at the time. And is that the sort of thing going on now? And
Okay,
Well, I never suggested that Richard Wright should be murdered or that he was the father of all black writers. Richard and I had a quarrel of our own, which was more or less healed. We never got to be as close as I would have liked. But there was a quarrel between a very young man and an older man, and the fact is I loved Richard. For the rest, the whole, I tend not to move in the literary scene because it's dull. And I never understood, competing writers and all that. It's not for me. I have enough trouble competing with myself, And the rest is, the rest is somebody else's business. Not mine at all. I don't care what they're doing out there. I got my work to do and my family to take care of, and my friends, eat with, and that's it.
Okay, down front.
Since institutions of higher learning in America are deterring black students into school for the standards that they're raising, not because they can't meet those standards, but because of the high school, secondary school that they conceive, which isn't comparable to what white students conceive, and also that they are killing off some of our black leaders, such as, i.e. Malcolm, Martin Luther King. We no longer have them to look up to, as we look up to you, such as Malcolm decided us to action, and Martin decided us to action, not decide.
I know.
Contemplate action. And since we're in the position that we are in now, as far as a form of action, which we need with people such as them who are no longer here, and as we approach yourself, what would you give us as a groundwork, punitive groundwork, to go about, since we're not having people necessarily to look up to, and they're deterring us from thinking for ourselves or getting access to ingredients to help us to think for ourselves?
Go ahead. There's no need. He was right up front. I think they got that.
That is a terrible, it's a terribly difficult question to answer honestly, Because the truth is, I don't have any single answer, I understand very well what you're talking about. I know where you're coming from. I know about the schools you're talking about. And then I have to ask you to do something, something we can do, something that you only can do. I don't mean that I'm copping out on you. But since you are in the situation, you have to attack it. I don't know how to tell you to attack it, If you cannot get an education one way, then you'll have to get it another, If you have to steal the books and steal the time, You understand what I mean? I will do, I'm with you. I would do anything. I would do anything. But I know what you're up against.
Pardon me, but such as who has not necessarily made it to Berkeley,
Mhm.
who doesn't get the opportunity that I have now,
Mhm.
those who are still in the street
Mhm.
and are very disappointed,
Mhm.
I cannot always reach them.
Mhm.
What are other modes to get to them?
How can you get the others to those students who are in the streets?
Well, you have to go to the streets. You know, you have to go to the pool halls. You know, to the prisons. And I you know, I know. I'm not. My situation's not so very different from yours. It seems to be, but it's not so very different. You have to go where the trouble is. You know, they won't come to you. They don't dare. You know, they don't know how. You understand me? You know, you will have to go there, and bring out one. You see what I mean? Or bring out another. You see what I mean? But if you see the necessity, you have to act on it. You follow me? Hmm? You're not as alone as you think you are.
Okay, back here, take questions, sure. Okay, Jonathan Kane. Very good. Excellent. Would Mr. Baldwin be willing to go to Rhodesia and stay there and write a book on it and then come back, I guess? And then come back. By the way, are you speaking of Rhodesia, or I presume you're speaking of Zimbabwe? Okay. Okay. Fine. Excellent. Go ahead. Okay, we'll get to that too. Good.
I'm afraid, to tell you the truth, that I probably cannot go to Rhodesia now. Life being what it is, I may be there tomorrow. Who knows? But at the moment, I had other plans. That doesn't mean that I disagree with you about Ian Smith and so much else.
Okay, right here up front.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. There is a book, in fact, though, it's coming out now. Yeah, a book called "We Are Everywhere," written by a white Rhodesian refugee. It's a series of portraits of about 6 gorillas, and I did the preface to it. And it's my small contribution, but I'll improve. Oh.
Oh, what are your reflections on the? Okay, is that it?
Miles Davis. Oh.
Okay, there are 2 things. One is on the trial of Huey Newton, is this trial, and number 2 about Miles Davis. Significance for you of Miles Davis as a writer who was here some years back.
There's very little to be said about the trial of Huey Newton. You know, it's an obscene waste of money. And,
Amen.
you know, and they're furious because they didn't manage to get him. You know, and we mustn't let them get him. You know, it's a crock of shit. You know,
2 crocs.
As for Miles Davis, Miles is a friend of mine. I never thought, you know, it's hard to think about a friend of yours in terms of his significance to you because I love him. I suppose when I think about it, you know, his journey, which is his music, means a great deal to me. You know, he's my brother. It's very hard for me to disassociate myself from him. I think I know where he is. I think he knows where I am. You know, though we seem superficially very unlike. But beneath that, we're very close, really. You know, and I learned a lot from Miles, from his music especially, and from his style. Oh, the only way I can answer that, really, is to quote another friend of mine, Max Roach. We met each other a few weeks ago on the beach in Hollywood, and Max grabbed me and he said, "We're still here."
Okay, right over here. Sure.
Educate them. Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. I'm not so sure that that's a contradiction, I'm talking in any case. I know what Jesse's saying, and I know what Harry's saying. I don't think that's in contradiction. We're talking about how to save our children. We're talking about the morale of our children. And any technique which will do that is perfectly is valid. I was thinking about children on buses, much younger children, spending hours on buses, going to a school where they are not wanted, where they cannot possibly learn anything, and coming back home even more demoralized than they were when they left. And I think that's wrong. I don't think it... And you may think I'm being excessive, or bitter, but I've observed. I can only tell you what I have seen. I know in my own life that the public school system did not educate me, had no intention of educating me. I'm afraid that's true. Now one's got to do something about it. And what has to be done about it? Maybe I'm not the person, to answer that question. But the question has to be raised because the children are being destroyed. That's all I'm really saying. And we can't afford to destroy our children. Yes. Well, you misunderstood me because what if I say to black parents what I said about schools? I don't expect anybody who hears me go out and do what I say, but I do want you to think about it. What am I asking except that black people be responsible for black children because nobody else will be.
Okay. We'll take your question. You got a question? We'll take your question now. 2 questions. Okay. Wait a minute. Very good. Amen. I see no need to repeat the questions. Very.
I don't know, and I'm not sure I know how to answer it. You know, because that San Diego, Black Studies Department and whole academic political crisis you're talking about, really. I'm not, I really don't know how to answer that because all I can tell you is you have to save that department. I can't tell you. I know how power works, but I really honestly don't know how to answer that because I'm not there really. As for the second part, all I can say about that is it's a revolution which is unprecedented, and it's true they have the guns, but we have something else. They have the guns, but that's all they have. Let me put it that way. And I know this. When a kingdom can defend itself only with guns, it hasn't got long to live.
I should mention that your problem is not only the problem that's being faced in San Diego, it's being faced over many places in the United States. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's very necessary to have a national conference of some type to deal with that specific type of thing. Yes, so you can take a follow-up. Yeah, that's good to have one day, but I'm talking about something that's really programmed over a year or something to really have something. Okay, this young lady here's Nancy. Well, go ahead. Take you next. I can't repeat all that now. Go ahead. Damn, I hope we got that. Is that it? Oh, we're getting in gear here now. Go ahead. Yeah, Erskine taking off his coat. Yeah, it's getting good. Yeah. Go ahead. Can you get that? Okay. Well, there's a lot of things. There are a lot of things there. Let's see if he can pick out some of that and at least try to respond to some of the things.
Oh, wow. No, I can't answer. I really can't. A lot of it I can't answer. But you begin at the beginning about interracial marriage. That is who people marry, who people love, is their business.
You said before. That's right. That's right. You'll be next. That's right. All right, let's see. Okay. Go ahead. Will you please? Come on, let's let her answer her questions. Okay. Well, let Mr. Baldwin respond to the question, please. Let's have some sort of order in here.
Look, Look.
Okay.
Listen.
Okay, let him answer your question, please.
We have to be strong enough to let people be free to live, no? Do you think you have the right, or I have the right to tell anybody else who or he or she should marry, who he or she should love? That will weaken the fiber of the nation faster than anything else.
Okay. Okay, up here, the question, the Berkeley man. Okay.
It is what. What do you mean by that? You mean the mentality of white people? I have said over and over and over again, you know, I'm trying to make this clear, and I'm quoting Malcolm when I say this, that white is a state of mind. You know, you're as white as you think you are, as white as you choose to be. You know, I said it's a moral choice. I don't think that we've come this far to fall into the European nightmare. That's exactly how the European nightmare began, by dictating to other people how they should live. We haven't got the right to do that. That's what I mean. I pretend that we are better than that, much better than that.
All right. Quiet, please.
I beg your pardon.
So would you read for he can't hear that.
They had a number of courses in university that qualified for history and youth constitutions requirement, and they cut a lot of those that came out of the ethnic and black studies department.
Well, the answer to your question, obviously, is no. You know, what you're talking about is Mr. Peter just explained to me in detail, but the political operation that you've endured. Well, you see, what can I tell you, my friend? The purpose of the institution is, let me put it another way. There are two ways. The state does not want, no state really wants, you know, a really educated person, because an educated person asks questions. You know, what the state ideally wants is somebody formed for the purposes of the state who will not ask questions, certainly, and who will not disturb the peace. Now, this is true in California, it's true all over, you know, it's true. And so when you're up against it, you have to fight that, you know. And it is true, the historical detail we're talking about, that is the courses which were rejected, which you are losing, is part of a conspiracy to keep you from knowing who you are. Now, when I say this, people will say at once that I'm exaggerating, I'm paranoid or whatever, but not all of the things that happen, you know, to black people, you know, can be dismissed as acts of God. There's a certain purpose, you know. There's a reason. There's a reason that you're in battle. And the reason has to do with your attempt to discover who you are, which is what you mean by education, and the state's determination that you shall not discover who you are, which is what it means by education. You know, you're on the right track, so I can tell you. You know, I mean, what you see, trust what you see, because it's true.
Okay, back.
I beg your pardon?
Your use of his room. That he was in Israel before, and you'd like to know some of his views on Zionism and what he experienced while he was in Israel. Is that it?
I was in Israel several years ago, and I liked it very much. Being there and walking around. It's a very beautiful country, and I like the people very much. That's one thing. But I'd tell you another thing too, though, which is this: you sit on a cafe terrace in Tel Aviv, for example, and you watch Jews from Russia, England, France, England, in short, from Europe. And you watch Jews from Ethiopia, Algeria, Morocco, Africa. And there's a great gap between the European Jew and the African Jew. In the bottom of the ladder, bottom of the pile, is the Yemenite. Now, when I had to think about it, it was, it was a little painful because I had many Jewish friends. And, of course, I was born in the Bible. That had something to do with it, too. I know something about the history of Zionism. And so I know something about the correspondence between people like Chaim Weizmann and Theodore Herzl to Winston Churchill, let us say, to the English authorities at that time. The polite way of putting it is to say that, as Time magazine would put it, that the Zionist movement used the available political machinery. Well, the available political machinery just happened to be England, which was then a tremendous colonial power. And the Zionist movement did go on record as saying, if you give the land to us, they said this to the British, if you give the land to us, and not to the Arabs, your empire will be safe for 1,000 years. What's in the record book stays in the record book. I didn't write it. I can't expunge it. And finally, one could say that the Palestinians have been paying for Europe's guilty conscience for 31 years. And one could say that the state of Israel was not created to save the Jews, but to protect Western interests at the gate of the Middle East. And that would never have happened if it had not been for the Third Reich. That's a very bitter way to put it, but that's the truth. Now, I do not know, I was born in the Bible, but I am not so sure I believe in the biblical possession of the land. And I don't think that it's right for the Palestinians to pay for Europe's crimes.
Okay.
Once you spoke about biblical terms, biblical terms go down past history. Okay, one time they circumcised the cat with a rock. That's it. Okay, you got to legislate all law now. Okay. What I'm saying is, if you can legislate a law saying that people do not pierce with needles, hypodermics, or scalpels, or any kind of operational material, because when a person is into a hospital or any form of law, legislature, or judicial term, that's what I'm saying.
So what's your question?
My question is, what would be your law? If you had to write a law saying that anybody can go, I'm here, I'm suffering.
Okay. And how would you enforce it? Okay, go ahead.
I say that because my hypothesis is it leads to cancer, heart attack, cancer, and other eye infections.
Essentially, it has to do with it. You don't want the body being pierced with the hypodermic needles, etc., or sutures, or whatever it is.
Okay, if it does happen to anybody, they'll eventually crack over from a heart attack, cancer,
Okay.
or cancer in old age.
Okay, how do you respond to that?
I'm not absolutely sure I'm equipped to answer the question because I don't know enough about what I think I know something about what you're talking about, you know. But I'm not. I don't know anything about medicine at all. I agree with you. You know, I don't want anything. I don't want any needles in my body. But I don't know anything. I don't know enough. I think you're talking about medicine. You're talking about Western medicine, and I have my own theories about Western medicine. You know, I think we can do without it. You know, but I'm not equipped to go into to discuss that in detail. It's something I'm trying to figure out myself.
Okay, right here.
Black people should be responsible for black children. I heartily agree with you. What do you think of the present trend? Women treat their children in daycare centers up to 11 hours a day. Do you think that we are returning to emotionally starved orphanages of yesteryear? I am opposed to any daycare or any kind of nursery that is beyond 3 hours a day for a child under the age of 5.
All right, quiet, please. Let's get. Okay, what's your question? Okay, 1 minute, please. Your question is. You just want his comments? Okay, is that it? Okay, let's hear your comment. Quiet, please. Let's get that.
Shh. Financial means to do it. I think the proper thing to do is stop listening to politicians who are using welfare as football, demanding no welfare payments so that women can stay home with their children until their children are raised.
Okay, essentially, the question she's asking has to do with daycare and essentially then too about the black mother and white mother with respect to their children. What are his opinions on that?
You've obviously touched a nerve.
Obviously.
You obviously touched a nerve, and frankly, since I'm not a mother, I'm not in this situation. I'm gonna let that question pass. Let me go home and think about it.
Mr. Raymond, go ahead. Let Jimmy go to the other part of the question. Go ahead. The other part of the question that has to do with daycare. Is there anything you want to?
Yeah, well, when I was growing up, my mother and my father, were working. They had to work to feed us, and we were not in daycare. There was no daycare then. We stayed with an aunt, or we stayed with an uncle, or we stayed with various other people. Well, my father didn't want to go on welfare until he had to, and so we were very poor. I was the oldest, so I know what I'm talking about, right? I took care of the kids.
You were the daycare.
I was a daycare, yeah. But you see, I'm in a situation now. I don't know California, first of all. I don't know what these women are up against, with their children. Obviously they do, and it appears that they know something you don't know. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that the economic situation of black people being what it is, and the ways in which you had to outwit it, dictate a great many things. And if a mother has to leave her child in daycare, it's not because she wants to.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, question way back in the back here.
Taking on a part of that burden and making available on-site help
Very nicely put. Okay, the lady up here. Please speak a little louder, please. Do you want him to comment to that? Do you want him to comment to that? Is that what you want? Is that your? Was a specific question? Okay, I guess I imagine that Mr. Baldwin would like to respond to it. Very nicely put. I imagine he'd like to say a few words to that.
No, I think I understand you. I think I hear you. I don't want you to think I was hostile to the sister. I didn't feel hostile at all. No, not at all. No, I meant what I said, and I hear you. You know, and what can I say? What can I add to that? You know. I see that, and I know it, and make sure it's love. You say, well, what can I can't add anything to that. You know what you say about the white woman, the role of the white woman in the society is true. You know, what I do not want to see, I don't want to see what has happened to us. I don't want us to repeat the nightmare. I don't want us to decide that all white women go under the gun. The way all black women have gone under the gun, or all black men. When I said I think we're better than that, I mean we're better than that. We don't need to do that. Do you hear me? You know what I'm trying to say? And I don't think we disagree. You know, I understand what you're saying very well, and I love you for it.
All right, we have another 23 minutes, and at this time we'll take a question right over here. The gentleman, fine. Yes, go ahead. What advice do you have for young Afro-American writers that are emerging on the scene, or want to emerge on the scene? Are emerging on the scene.
Well, what do you mean by advice? You know, a writer writes, and then the trick is somehow to get read. You know, get somebody to read it so you can get published. You know, an Afro-American writer is still very much up against the structure of publishing, well, which is just simply another American institution. And he's going to have to find a way to, in a way, smuggle his experience or force it, and not expect really to be understood by the machinery which is publishing him. I mean, you got to decide to be tougher than the machinery, if that makes sense to you.
Okay, your follow-up. You had a follow-up there.
What kind of historical advice do you have for African American people that are living in America in terms of history in Africa relating to Arab expansionism into North Africa and dealing with the South African problem in South Africa and Zimbabwe? What kind of advice do you have for black people in the world? Just something.
In Africa? Well, it would be kind of presumptuous of me to. How can I possibly advise anybody in such an extreme situation? I'm sitting over here; they're in it. The last thing they need is advice from me. See what I mean?
Okay, over here. You're talking about you would say we look at our present trouble. You mean the wholesale thing in Guyana and Jamestown? Okay, so how does he look at that? How does he look at that? Okay. Okay.
I hear your question very well. It's my question. I don't know how to answer it. I don't think it's a fluke. I don't think it's an isolated event in history. It's an event which, frankly, I have not yet known exactly how to read, but I don't think it was. Well, I don't think it was suicide. I begin from that premise. And the way that leads us, I'm not quite prepared. I'm not sure I know yet. But I hear your question very well. I don't believe the story that I was told.
Okay. Like in the case of the needles, accidental sutures, and things like that. How? How do you legislate against those type of things?
I'm sorry the question wasn't clear to me before. It's clear to me now. How do you legislate against this? How do you legislate against anything? You do it. You force it. But you see, the question wasn't clear to me, at all. And I didn't know about the bomb either, So, but I beg your pardon? But I'd like to know more about that. That's all I can tell you now. I'd like to know more about that.
Okay, let's take one right up front here.
Mr. Baldwin, in your book, Double Fine's Work, you speak about the communications in the movie industry. I'd like for you to speak directly about what you think about the effect of communication on the minds of Americans, and what do you mean by the title, The Double Fine's Work?
What does he mean by communication? It has to do with communication in America, with the media, and what do you mean by the devil finds work? His definition of his book, The Devil Finds Work.
Well, The Devil Finds Work is a book about black people in the movies, and the title is a little sardonic. You know, the devil finds work. You know, we're working for a while. And well, the movies. What it's about is the way the media, in this case the movies, distort reality, and not only distort it, almost make it irrelevant, almost make reality inaccessible, because you are so inundated with the image, with the dream, you know, and everyone, and some part of everyone which wants to dream, and the Hollywood industry, television industry, is geared to that, and unluckily, you know, most of the people in this country never questioned it, and are still dreaming. It reminds me of Ralph Ellison's statement about there being no people more dangerous than sleepwalkers. When this is a nation of sleepwalkers, and that's what my book is, you know, partly about.
Okay, gentleman here, little brother. What was that?
I will read an item in these papers that I clipped about you. And I wonder if you always see that item. Because it's a paper like maybe from Los Angeles, Seattle, and Chicago. Do you see all these things?
You're saying that you read a lot of items in the newspaper about him. Oh.
Oh.
Last fall in the Los Angeles Times, someone wrote who, when they were young, were thrown out of their home in New York. And you were writing a book over in New Jersey. This person went over there and you took care of it. Did you see that item?
No, I didn't see that item.
Yeah, very nice, very good. I like that. It's not okay. Up there. Go ahead. Oh, wait a minute. Go ahead. Let him finish. Let's finish. Let's get to finish. You got a question? What's your question? Hey, come on, please. What is your question? So, was there a question? So you're saying that black people are needed. Oh no.
That's what he's saying. Yes, I'm willing. I hear what you're saying, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. But I still believe, you know, that the American Republic intends to make the does not want to need us, you know, and would like to rearrange that as quickly as possible. You know, now it won't be possible. But you talk about mobilizing the black working class. I grew up with that idea, and it is almost impossible to do, you know, because it isn't as strong as you think it is, for one thing, you know, and it's too scattered for another. That is what I think in any case. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Quick question right here. Would you the next question, please?
Mr. Baldwin, I wanted to ask you if you know of any place I can find out any information about the racial problems in
That's
more information about it.
well, it's very tough, but there's very little. British are not anxious to give out information about it. And,
Stop going over there.
I have some items that I put in these papers.
Well, we got some assistance here. It's 10 minutes and we're counting down. We'll take a question right here. Go ahead, take your question. I can't hear you.
you heard me say that? I said all white people are the enemy?
All right, go ahead. What's your question? So you're saying are white people the enemy? That's essentially what you're asking. Are all white people the enemy?
I have never said that. I'm not a fool.
Very good. Nice and terse. Fine. Right up front here.
If she wants to go. What do you mean? Well, if she wants to go, well, I don't understand the nature of your question.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, what if you think a Negro woman goes to Jerusalem to worship, say, not an idol god, but someone bigger than, say, Malcolm X, Muhammad, something like that?
Well, in Jerusalem, the official God is Jehovah. You know, and Malcolm and Elijah were not gods. You know. So I still haven't got your question. I mean, I don't know what the connection between Jerusalem and some other god.
Would you go there or someplace else? Maybe touch the Wailing Wall or something.
I don't know. I've been to Jerusalem, and I'd like to go back to Jerusalem, but I didn't go there particularly to worship. You know.
Okay, go over here.